All right, welcome back, everyone, for another deep dive.
Always happy to be back.
Today, we're diving into a chapter called Desolation of the Earth.
Yeah.
From this book, Desolation, Judgment, and Satan's Fate. Prophetic View.
All right.
And I got to say, this chapter really goes all in on painting a picture of what the Earth's future might look like.
Definitely.
And it's a pretty vivid picture, right?
Definitely not pulling any punches.
No punches pulled.
Yeah.
It's a stark contrast between what happens to the righteous
and
what happens to the wicked.
Yeah, black and white almost.
Yeah, and ultimately it all leads to this 1,000 years of desolation, right?
Right.
And Satan being locked up.
That's right.
So I'm really curious to get your take on this.
Absolutely.
Because it raises some really interesting questions like, what exactly leads to this desolation? How is it that, people's fates are decided?
Right.
And what's going on with Satan during this whole 1,000-year period?
Yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot to unpack there for sure.
No kidding.
Well, one of the first things that jumps out at me is just the sheer intensity of the language used to describe Babylon's downfall.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's like...
It's graphic.
It's apocalyptic, right? Plagues, fire, kings, and merchants just wailing over their losses.
Yeah, it's almost like a scene from a disaster movie or something.
Yeah, exactly.
But I'm guessing Babylon here is not just talking about a physical city, right?
Right, you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah.
It's a symbol. It
Yeah.
represents something much bigger.
Gotcha.
I mean, think about it. Worldliness, pride, materialism, those are the real enemies here.
So it's like a whole value system that's being destroyed, not just buildings.
Exactly.
Wow.
And the chapter really digs into the regret that people feel when they've clung to those worldly values and they suddenly realize what they've lost.
And it's not just regret, is it?
You're right. It's not just a, oops, I made a mistake kind of feeling.
Right.
It's more like it's witnessing God's victory and realizing they're on the losing side.
Yeah, that's a really interesting point.
Yeah, it really makes you think about the difference between genuine remorse and just regretting the consequences.
Like, just being upset that you got caught kind of thing.
Yeah, exactly.
But not actually being sorry for what you did.
Precisely.
It's a
powerful distinction.
It's a scary thought, actually.
It is.
But in the middle of all this chaos, there's also this image of God's people finding safety.
Right.
Amidst all the turmoil.
Like a modern-day Exodus.
Yeah.
Remember how the Israelites were protected while passing through the Red Sea?
Right.
It's that same idea.
Wow, that's a powerful image.
Yeah, it's a reminder that even when things are at their worst, there's still that possibility of refuge and protection.
If you're aligned with God.
Exactly.
That's pretty amazing.
And speaking of being aligned with God.
Yeah. The chapter doesn't let the unfaithful pastors off the hook either.
Oh, right.
Yeah, their fate is pretty grim. Their teachings are exposed.
And they face the consequences.
That's right.
It really makes you think about what true spiritual leadership is all about.
Doesn't it?
I mean, it's easy to be swayed by, someone who's charismatic or popular.
Right.
But this chapter seems to suggest that true leadership is about guiding people toward what's right.
Even when it's hard.
Even when it's hard.
Yeah, it's a high standard for sure.
It makes you wonder if we see those same kinds of things happening today.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, think about the people we choose to follow, the voices we listen to.
Right.
Are they leading us towards something genuine?
That's a great point.
Or are they just leading us down a path that's ultimately harmful?
That's a really good point.
It's something to think about.
So from this point of reckoning, the chapter really starts to ramp up the tension, right?
Yeah, things escalate quickly. Yeah, we're talking global conflict, divine judgment against the wicked.
It's a whirlwind of events.
It's like everything's coming to a head.
Absolutely. Yeah, and right in the thick of it all, the chapter introduces this idea of the mark of deliverance.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of like
okay.
Well, those who are protected from judgment, they're marked similar to the Passover,
Right.
Where the Israelites were spared because of the blood on their doorposts.
So it's about making a choice, like declaring where your allegiance lies.
Exactly. And those who don't receive the mark, well,
they face the consequences.
Yeah, the judgment is described as this massive global event.
And the result is?
A desolate earth.
Wow.
Totally empty.
It's a chilling picture, this wasteland with no life,
It is. It's a stark reminder of what happens when humanity turns away from God.
Like hitting the reset button on creation.
Yeah, exactly.
And a powerful image of judgment and renewal.
And it's not just the physical desolation that's striking, it's the absence of humanity itself.
Well, that's right. Everyone's gone.
Either to the city of God or, they've faced destruction.
Only Satan's left.
Right. And that's where things take a really interesting turn.
Yeah, because then he gets bound and confined to this desolate earth.
For 1,000 years.
1,000 years. That's a long time.
And his prison.
Yeah.
The bottomless pit.
What's that all about?
This isn't just some hole in the ground.
Right.
It's symbolic.
Okay.
It represents this primordial chaos, like a return to the formless void before creation.
Whoa.
It's almost like Satan's being forced back to a state of pre-existence.
Stripped of everything he gained.
Exactly.
Through deception and all that.
So it's not just physical imprisonment, it's this cosmic time out.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Forced to confront the consequences of his actions.
And imagine the psychological torment for a being like Satan.
Oh, I know, right.
He's all about action, deception, control.
And now he's stuck in this stillness, this wasteland that he created.
It's like poetic justice.
It really is.
But while he's suffering, the chapter says the righteous are reigning alongside Christ.
Yeah, for that whole 1,000 years judging the wicked.
That's quite a contrast.
It is, and it's an empowering message, isn't it?
How so?
Well, it shows that faithfulness doesn't just lead to salvation, it leads to authority.
Oh, yeah.
A chance to participate in establishing justice.
So it's not just about our own personal salvation,
right,
but about shaping the world around us.
Exactly. Our choices have consequences, not just for ourselves, but for the world we create.
It's a powerful thought.
And after this 1,000-year reign, the final judgment.
Right. Everyone who wasn't part of the first resurrection.
Including Satan and his angels.
They come back to face judgment.
It's the culmination of everything that's come before.
No more chances, no more choices.
It's final. Absolute.
It's heavy stuff.
It is.
But, amidst all this talk of judgment and destruction, I also sense this deep longing for justice.
Yeah, absolutely.
The wicked are held accountable. The righteous are vindicated.
It speaks to our desire for fairness, for balance.
Like a fundamental human desire.
It is the idea of judgment, reaping what we sow.
It's a universal theme, isn't it?
It crosses cultures and time periods.
It's a reminder that our actions have consequences, both now and in the future.
Exactly. I think we've pretty much covered all the bases here.
Yeah, I think so too.
But there are still some questions that linger,
Oh, definitely.
Especially about that 1,000 years.
That 1,000-year period for Satan's imprisonment.
Yeah, like what's up with that?
Yeah, what is the significance of that number?
Is it literal?
Yeah.
Is it symbolic?
Yeah, it seems very deliberate, right?
It does.
It's not just a random number thrown in there.
Yeah, and that's where you get a lot of debate among scholars.
Oh, I bet.
Some take it literally, 1,000 years, that's it. Others see it as representing just a long but finite period of time.
So it's kind of a mystery.
It is.
But it makes you wonder what happens during that time.
Right. And
if it's about God's people reigning with Christ,
yeah,
what does that actually look like?
What does that mean?
And what happens after?
Yeah, because the chapter paints this bleak picture of Earth, right?
Desolate, no people.
Does it stay that way forever?
Yeah. What about Satan?
What happens to him after the 1,000 years are up?
And what about all the people who were saved?
Yeah, do they ever come back to Earth?
It's like we're being set up for a sequel or something.
It does, doesn't it?
We need part 2 of this story.
And I think that's part of the power of prophecy.
Oh, interesting.
It's not just about knowing the future. It's about making us think. Sparking our imaginations, pushing us beyond our present reality.
So it's about wrestling with those big questions, even if they're unsettling.
Yeah, those ultimate questions about humanity and creation.
Even if they're scary.
But it forces us to really confront what we believe.
Yeah, and I think, even with all this talk of judgment and destruction, there's also this sense of hope in there.
Yeah, definitely.
The wicked are held accountable.
Right.
The righteous are vindicated.
It speaks to that desire for justice, for things to be made right.
A new beginning, a restoration.
Exactly.
Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
We have.
From the fall of Babylon to Satan's imprisonment.
And everything in between.
And even pondered the mysteries of what comes after.
The big questions.
It's definitely given me a lot to think about.
Me too. And I hope it's done the same for you listening.
Absolutely.
If you're as fascinated by these big questions as we are, be sure to subscribe to The Deep Dive for more explorations into thought-provoking topics.
We'll be back soon with another deep dive.
So until then, keep those minds curious.
And keep exploring.
We'll see you next time.